Amiri was preparing for Iruma's arrival, and she freaked out when he said that he didn't know that she was the student council president. Thanks to the earlier explosion, Iruma had to postpone his visit, and she thought being the president had scared him away. Meanwhile, Kiriwo had managed to escape the pearly gates yet again, and Iruma was fanning him like a lousy servant. He also found out that Kiriwo was the only member of the magical apparatus battlers. Kiriwo started showing him the different items they had in the room that needed magic to function. Each time he tried to pour some magic into an item, he would draw closer to his maker. He explained that he's too frail and ends up close to death any time he tries to use magic. After that, Kiriwo showed Iruma an apparatus that's supposed to enhance one's magic. Iruma then fixed up the puzzle piece, which was supposed to be the item's battery. Kiriwo was having a hard time putting the pieces together because he was a useless, good-for-nothing demon. He got too excited when the pieces were put together and nearly passed out for good. They were able to get the machine working, and Kiriwo used his powers on the magic orb without threatening to pass on to the afterlife. He said he wanted to make magical items that would help weaker demons stand up against the stronger ones. Iruma asked if he'd be allowed to join this battler, even if he had no magic. And Kiriwo said he'd be delighted to have someone as hopeless as him. After that, he came across Asmodeus and Clara, who kept clinging to him like a crazy wife. Iruma was smiling like someone who had just gotten laid for the first time, and he explained to them what had happened. The final day of the battler trials came, and Kiriwo was still causing nuclear explosions around the school. Iruma came to meet him, along with Asmodeus and Clara, who was always stuck to him like an annoying stain. Kiriwo passed out from sheer joy because it was the first time in his life that people actually wanted to join his group. Meanwhile, in the student council office, Amiri was heartbroken and looked like she'd die because the love of her life never showed up. At that moment, the stupid boy finally showed up and noticed the decorations in the room were similar to the love manga he always read to her. He blurted out the fact that he had joined another battler, and Amiri was ready to have his head for such insolence. Later on, the school was preparing for the battler party to welcome new recruits. Opera was arranging what looked like a mini studio to capture all angles of Iruma, thanks to his creepy and obsessive grandpa. Sullivan went ahead to attend the 13's dinner, a meeting of the Netherworld's 13 greatest demons. They were concerned about the crumbling state of the Netherworld, since it had been without a demon king for some time. So, they had to raise either Sullivan, Belial, or Levi to the throne. Meanwhile, the three individuals were busy arguing about who had the cutest grandchild. Belial and Sullivan reminded Levi that she was an old hag, and they got beat back to their senses. They decided that Sullivan should take the throne, but the old man would rather spend his dying days with Iruma. Suddenly, Henry, one of the 13 and Amiri's father, walked into the room and arrested Sullivan after he found evidence of him illegally going to the human world. Sullivan called Opera to inform him about the situation, and the butler assumed that Sullivan would be in the slammer for a while. He thought Iruma was going to be devastated by his absence, but the stupid boy was just playing video games like an idiotic weeb. Meanwhile, at school, the first-year students were all nervous about their parents coming to see them. Iruma pictured Sullivan's embarrassing theatrics and started getting nervous as well. Clara's battalions of crackheads, which she calls her family, were also coming, and she was the only calm person in the room. Naberius was then called to the chair demon's office and informed about Sullivan's arrest. Sullivan appointed Naberius as a temporary school director while he was chilling in jail and playing chess. The rest of the teachers wondered what Sullivan must have done, but Naberius told them to keep their guard up at the battler party. Robin was seconds away from meeting his maker with the way he kept pestering Naberius, and he eventually got what was coming for him. In the magic apparatus battler room, Iruma and Asmodeus were having a conversation while Clara acted like a deranged animal. Asmodeus said his mother was coming, and he was doing everything possible to stop her. Kiriwo joined their conversation and spoke more about his miserable life and awful parents. This made Iruma feel more connected because they were both unfortunate beings in life. After that, they headed out to start preparations for the party. Kiriwo revealed that battlers competed for prizes, and members may even rise in rank. Sadly, Kiriwo was also a broke boy like his club, so the magical apparatus battler didn't have enough funds to afford a reasonable space for their stand. Iruma got inspired by their crazy ideas to present fireworks at the competition. He tried to explain the idea to them, but they all had a combined IQ that was on the negative scale. The testing required darkness, so Kiriwo suggested that they apply to stay overnight. Clara, being a brain-dead fool, quickly got into her pajamas as if it were a sleepover party. Kiriwo nearly died from another explosion, but he revealed that he could create barriers. He used his ability to always survive his catastrophic experiments. In order to explain the concept of fireworks better, Iruma asked Amiri for one of her mangas. She thought he was just going to do his work as an unpaid translator and refused to lend him the book. When she heard that he'd be making fireworks, she left the book for him in hopes of seeing the fireworks for herself. With the book, Iruma and his group continued their experiments until they successfully made the fireworks. After their work, they had a pillow fight at night, as opposed to the horror stories that Clara wanted to tell. Iruma and Kiriwo teamed up with their evasive and barrier abilities. After their fun night, Kiriwo suddenly got a call from an aggressive maniac over the phone. The caller was revealed to be Baal, a demon who could use lightning magic, and he revealed that they were planning to destroy the school. He was also the one responsible for Sullivan's arrest. The next day, it was announced that the battler party would last for 3 days. There were also awesome prizes in store for the best battlers. The winning group would have the battler's president go up 2 whole ranks, and the rest of the members would also advance by 1 rank. Upon hearing this news, the students freaked out as if it were equivalent to winning the lottery. All the battlers continued their preparations, and the seniors in each group were ready to end the first years if they messed up. Meanwhile, Kiriwo went into a secret room where he recalled his plan with Baal to destroy the school. He continued to work on the machine and acknowledged that it all worked out thanks to Iruma and his friends. Surprisingly, Iruma walked into the room and asked what he was doing. In a flashback, it's shown that Iruma's ring flew the stupid boy through the air like a fly because it was attracted to Kiriwo's necklace. Kiriwo explained that they were in his secret base and signaled for Iruma to come behind the curtains with him, like a creepy degenerate. He said it was a room filled with crazy items that were made by former members of their battler. He then revealed that the secret room was on the school roof, behind one-way, soundproof glass. They looked below them and saw Robin being a nuisance to Nibirius, who was ready to kill the stupid teacher for bugging him. Kiruro also told Iruma that all this was connected to his plans to bring equality between the weak demons and the strong ones. Iruma said he was also happy to meet Kiruro while blushing and looking like he had switched sides. He held Kiruro's hands like a desperate girlfriend and said they should aim for the grand prize at the battler party. Kiruro was just confused as to why this creepy guy was acting like a freak. After Iruma's encouraging words, Kiruro was happy about how alike they were. They both went back to continue the preparations outside. Asmodeus was on the verge of killing Clara, while she thought they were probably playing a fun game of tag. Clara ended up decorating the launcher with flowers and cute toys. The next day, everyone was getting ready for the party, and their families were excited, except Asmodeus, who was still trying his best to keep his mother away. Iruma was really nervous since he hadn't seen Sullivan in a while, but Opera assured him that his ridiculous, careless grandpa would definitely keep his promise. Kiruro was also delighted and couldn't wait for the party to start. Iruma asked his friends for their help to win the grand prize, and Asmodeus was ready to keep glazing his windpipe for all eternity. The event would begin with Party Eve, a festival before the main competition started. Iruma and his band of idiots decided to scout the other battlers around the venue. Iruma started by knocking out the yakisoba battlers by devouring their ogre-sized meal like a glutton. Sadly, the battlers didn't have any more ingredients to make more of their food. After that, they bumped into Sabnok, who planned to act out an action scene that involved the Demon King. The rest of their classmates suddenly bumped into them, and they all shared a meal brought by the weird swordsman, who's like the next Wind Hashira. One of his classmates, Jazz, warned him that the new magic battlers that he's a part of were going to try and produce water from a stone, like Moses in the Bible. There were also the game battlers, with their virtual sorcery hats that would allow people to play VR games and go on adventures. The underwater circus and magic beast battles were also all possible tough competitors for Iruma and his group. Clara was about to expose their secret, but Asmodeus used his familiar to take the stupid girl away before she caused any more havoc. Regardless of the tough competition ahead, Iruma was confident that he had a chance against them. After that, they went back to review their plans for the competition. Clara continued to give brain-dead responses to whatever Asmodeus said. Asmodeus then said that they would light their fireworks when the school bell rang to signal the start of the competition. Clara mistakenly lit the fuse, thanks to her being an embodiment of chaos. But the fireworks didn't get launched. They then realized that the fireworks shell was missing. Kiruro had taken the shell to his secret base, and he was getting ready to execute his plans. Meanwhile, Sullivan was playing chess in prison and whooping the butts of his interrogators. Henry was going through the evidence that Bal had given him. Amiri, who was patrolling the area, kept going back to Iruma's stand because she couldn't wait to see the fireworks. Her colleagues thought she was slowly losing it, but she used her mommy aura to shut them up. Iruma and the rest went all over the place to look for Kiruro, but they couldn't find him. He acknowledged that Kiruro was too much of a weakling to have gotten far with the heavy shell. They decided to wait for him until he showed up. Kiruo stood at the window of his base as the sun slowly set. He remembered how Bao called him a rotten and twisted person. When it got dark, Kiruo destroyed his necklace and covered the entire school in barriers. Naberius told the teachers to make sure that everyone was safe, but Robin still stuck to him like a stubborn stain. The students slowly started noticing the barriers around them, and Iruma looked like he recognized this ability. Sullivan immediately sensed the barriers appearing as Kiruo broke the necklace. Iruma also figured that the barriers were made by Kiruo. The student council members ran to Amiri's office to ask what they should do, but all the stupid girl could think about was how the barriers were similar to a scene in her manga. When she came back to her senses, she told them to make sure that the students were safe and reduce the ongoing panic. On the other hand, Naberius attacked the barriers and quickly realized that they repaired themselves very fast, while Robin continued to be a thorn in his flesh. He figured the barrier could only be destroyed by a demon of the Yada rank, and connected these events to Sullivan being detained. Naberius continued to break through the walls and move past them before they were repaired. He decided to use Robin's silly idea to announce to the students that what was happening was a surprise event by the new magic battler and game battler. The announcement convinced the students that they were trapped in a maze and that they had to find a way to the central plaza. Naberius made his way to the management room and began flipping through the documents to find all the students who could create barriers. The rest of the teachers continued to guide the lost students and also tried to figure out what was going on. They found that no one could leave or enter the school grounds or communicate with anyone outside. When most of the students had gathered in the central plaza, Naberius suspected that it was the plan of the culprit. On the other hand, Kiruo opened up a map of the school and guided the rest of the silly students to the plaza. He then put the fireworks shell on the machine and slowly got it ready to turn the school into a history lesson. Kiruo noticed that Iruma was approaching the secret room at a fast pace. He tried to figure out how a hopeless kid like Iruma could track him after breaking the necklace that Iruma's ring was attracted to. In a flashback, Asmodeus deduced that Kiruo must have been planning the chaos for some years. Clara continued to be nothing more than a comedic element in all of this. Iruma figured that Kiruo could be in the secret room, so he asked Asmodeus and Clara to help guide him. Asmodeus then drew a map of the school area and used it, along with Kiruo's magic paper soldiers that Clara copied, to guide Iruma through the maze. Iruma ran through the opening in the barrier while he communicated with Asmodeus. It was like watching the Maze Runner again. At the same time, Naberius had figured out that Kiruo was the culprit, and he ordered the teachers to capture him. The magic beast battler kept the students entertained with stupid tricks and stunts, while the teachers went on their search. When the ground started to shake, Amiri rushed to save Aiko, who nearly got flattened like a pancake. At that point, Aiko looked like she was ready to forget all about Iruma and have Amiri's kids. After that, Iruma finally made it to the lab, where he would approach Kiruo. Some of Iruma's classmates were completely useless as they continued playing their VR games, while Sabnok was stuck holding the building like the Titan Atlas. On the other hand, Iruma noticed there was a barrier on the door and kept banging on it until Kiruo let him inside, and he fell on his face like a clumsy fool. Kiruo accepted that he was the one who put up the barriers and took the fireworks. He told Iruma that he was going to use the machine and fireworks shell to blow up the school and turn everyone into a memory. Iruma couldn't understand his reasons, so Kiruo decided to explain his sad history with a sob story. Kiruo's family was also known as the Steel Barrier, and they were one of the most feared and famous families in the Netherworld. Sadly, he was born with very low magical powers and was seen as a loser and disappointment in his family. He was then taken to a correctional facility known as the Garden of Delinquents, where they tried to see if he had any hope in life. Regardless, he was still seen as a piece of garbage, even in the garden. He was able to become friends with a little girl, who was probably the only girl who managed to talk to such a loser. The girl tried to cheer him up by giving him compliments and even allowed him to touch her earring, which was a good luck charm from her late grandmother. One day, Kiruo and the poor girl got bullied by a bunch of ugly kids, and they took her earring. They tossed it into the river, and Kiruo managed to save it for a brief moment with his ability. For some reason, his brain went on vacation, and the barrier broke, which made the earring fall into the river and be lost. The girl was filled with despair and eventually left the garden, while Kiruo stayed back. That was when he realized that there were a lot of screws loose in his head, because he loved how hopeless she looked when the earring fell. Kiruo explained that he enjoyed watching people in agony, and it made him climax every time. He quickly got on top of Iruma and looked like he was about to take the young boy's purity. And Iruma didn't even look bothered by the deranged idiot. Kiruo continued and said that after the incident with the girl, he met Bal, who felt that the demons were becoming too weak. Bal helped Kiruo plan how to destroy Babels and bring back chaos to their world. Kiruo wanted to see Iruma's helpless face when he destroyed Asmodeus and Clara as well. Oh, the thought of it made him look like he was going to explode his seeds everywhere. But Iruma just ignored him and proceeded to remove the shell from the machine. Iruma explained that he's been through despair all his life, so it doesn't make any difference to him. Kiruo then realized that they were nothing alike. With a few seconds left, Iruma used the Ifrit mode on his ring and threw the fireworks into the sky, but it got blocked by the barrier. With no other choice, Iruma uses the forbidden Pandarula mode to break the barrier and send the fireworks into the sky. The students enjoyed the beautiful show, while Iruma fell to his doom. But Kiruo caught him with his barrier. After throwing a tantrum like a brat, Kiruo accepted defeat and said that Iruma was truly more ambitious than him. Iruma woke up to see Sullivan, but he didn't have the strength to move his body. Before the fireworks went off, Naberius and Robin made it to the rooftops. Robin finally had some use in this show, and he used his archery magic to send a warning note to Sullivan. Thanks to his family's abilities, no obstacle could stop the arrow until it got to its target. Sullivan then broke out of prison and saw when the fireworks were set off. He used his abilities to save the students from the falling debris, which would have turned them into grilled toast. After that, he and the other teachers apprehended Kiruo. Kiruo didn't give any details about his accomplice and said that he planned the whole thing himself. He warned Iruma about the other demons like him who would come seeking chaos and told him to be careful. After that, Iruma woke up to see his eccentric grandfather, who told him that Kiruo was taken by the demon border control for interrogation. Sullivan took him to the window, where the students cheered him on for the wonderful fireworks show. When they got down, Amiri rushed towards him like an abandoned wife and said she also enjoyed the fireworks. However, she still scolded him because they were supposed to watch it together. Iruma acknowledged Asmodeus, Clara, and Kiruo as members of his battler, who helped him build the fireworks. In the end, the fireworks were a success, and the party day started with a bang. During the party, the students voted for their favorite battlers, and their parents came to see if their children were any bit useful in school. Iruma and Asmodeus prepared the remaining fireworks before they met Clara and her eccentric siblings. The youngest ones were crawling up Iruma like creeps. Clara's mother kept talking about how crazy Clara was during her younger days and just wouldn't keep her mouth shut. They suddenly started singing a weirdly familiar song before running off like a bunch of crazies. Iruma and Asmodeus just stood there and tried to recover whatever little IQ they lost by watching them. Then, Asmodeus's mother, Amaryllis, showed up and started showering her son with a disturbing amount of love. She quickly tried to use her charming ways on Iruma, but Asmodeus quickly dragged her away to protect the boy's purity. Sullivan and Opera also arrived to enjoy the festival with Iruma. They went to see Sabnok's play and met his little sister, Sylvia, who was the only normal one in their family. After that, they played different games, with Opera mostly crushing the competition to win all the prizes for Iruma. Some parents called Naberius to deal with them, but once he saw Sullivan, he decided there were better things to do in his life. At night, Iruma set off the rest of his fireworks and accepted his new family as his pride and joy. Then he dragged Sullivan and Opera to take pictures with him. Then the time came to announce the winners of the Battler Party. The closing spectacular began, and it was time to hand out prizes. The Succubus Battler came in third place with their skills of keeping degenerates entertained. They were rewarded with a luxurious bedroom for their performance. The New Magic Battler came in second place, and they were rewarded with a year's supply of black holy water to use in their magical research. Lastly, the Broadcast Battler won the grand prize, and they got their ranks promoted. Sabnok was throwing a tantrum because he couldn't accept his own failure. The event was about to end, but Naberius popped up and said there would be a new award known as the Tricky Award. It would raise the rank of one representative of a battler by one. With the greatest plot armor known to man, the magical apparatus battler was called up to receive the award. Naberius scolded Iruma for putting himself in danger before awarding him with the third demon rank, Gimel. After that, Naberius left like a cranky old man. This meant Iruma was on the same level as Clara, which was quite disturbing. They ended the event with the school song, which Iruma surprisingly joined in to sing. Sullivan congratulated Iruma on its promotion. And that's when Iruma realized that his dreams of maintaining a low profile were history. Iruma could barely walk a meter before encountering people who were interested in him. His face was all over the school newspaper, like a celebrity. Asmodeus went ahead to laminate one of the photos and kept it for himself. After that, Iruma returned to being a slave translator for Amiri. The scene from the book was very intense, which made Amiri look like she was about to burst. But she caught sight of her father and went out to meet with him. Iruma left, and Henry bumped into him while spilling out a lot of murderous aura. Henry couldn't understand why Sullivan was obsessed with a pathetic boy like him. Henry mentioned that he had encountered a human before, and he ate the person with his colleagues. Iruma definitely peed on himself at that moment, but Henry said he was just joking. Instead, he did the proper paperwork and returned the human to their world. While they discussed, Amiri ran into them, and Iruma found out that Henry was her father. She mentioned Iruma's impressive record at school and his magnificent display at the Battler Party. She also referred to him as an outstanding demon, which signaled that she didn't know about his human origins. In order not to talk about the manga, she mentioned that she usually talked about love and relationships with Iruma alone in a room. Henry had a heart attack at the mention of that, because he definitely wasn't ready for a son-in-law. It's also revealed that Henry had an unhealthy daughter complex. Amiri then took her father to the infirmary before he had any more attacks. Asmodeus and Clara then confronted him and told him that they knew something had happened with Kiriro, but they were happy to wait for him to reveal the details. Iruma decided to continue his joyful life in the netherworld and prevents his friends from finding out that he was human. Iruma's fame starts to get more coverage in the newspaper than Kurumu, a dem doll. Dem dolls are like celebrity idols who degenerates worship with their lives. Asmodeus explains that demons have a stress period during their teenage years where they just want to be violent and sadistic. Dem dolls are one of the forms of entertainment that violent demons use as a medium to calm themselves. Kurumu was the top dem doll, and all the boys wanted to be on the floor she walked on. Iruma found out that she holds a meet and greet sometimes after her concert, where she suctions the stress from the teenage boys. An announcement suddenly came from the speakers, who requested that Iruma come to the broadcast room. Meanwhile, Kurumu finished a small broadcast and flooded the male assistants with her cuteness. Back in her dressing room, Kurumu is revealed to be Crocelle, a shy girl from the misfit class who is embarrassed by her idle personality. She put on her glasses and became the usual loser that everyone knew her as. She couldn't even strike a pose for 1 minute before commenting on how exposed her skin was. Despite being the most pathetic among her siblings, Crocelle noted that everyone treated her like a princess because of how cute she was. She decided to use her cute powers to defeat violence, gather all forms of degenerate people to her side, and also to get back at her family. Thanks to Iruma's fame, however, she wasn't getting as much coverage as she expected. She lost control of her ice powers out of anger until her manager came in and brought her back to her senses. She headed out for her next concert and reminded herself that she had to surpass her mother's rank and expand her horizons. She got on with the performance, and her degenerate fans were vibing along like their lives depended on it. The poor ones, who couldn't afford the ticket, streamed the concert through a projector in their classroom. She noticed Iruma was in the crowd and got really furious. Hours earlier, Iruma got summoned by the broadcasting battler president, Baraki, who gave Iruma, Asmodeus, and Clara tickets to Kurumu's concert. Baraki gave them tickets because he got a free pass to help out at the concert. That was how Iruma got to fulfill his degenerate dream of attending an idol's concert. Luckily, Iruma also won a ticket to meet Kurumu in person. Crocelle looked like she was close to turning her rival into a popsicle as they sat at opposite ends of the table. She tried her best to reply to the conversation normally, while she was burning on the inside. Crocelle eventually lost her cool and turned the whole room into Antarctica. She revealed her crazy schedule to him, which showed that she didn't have a life outside of school and being a Demdoll. While she was bragging about her busy schedule, Iruma picked up her notes, and she quickly snatched them back before he saw her class schedule, which was also written down there. Crocelle ended up just looking like a crazy girl, and even went ahead to cause a ruckus, all in a bid to hide her identity. Iruma decided to leave, and said he'd see her at school later. Seconds later, her brain figured out what he said, and she threw him back into the room, then froze him like a popsicle. Iruma said he already knew who she was, thanks to her timid nature of always folding her hands. Her ice powers and glasses also helped convince him about her identity. Since her glasses had a way to ward off her identity, she concluded that Iruma was nothing but an eccentric, creepy fan of hers. Crocelle was surprised when Iruma admitted that he was envious of how well she managed to conceal her identity because he was tired of standing out without even trying. This just made her more upset. Because he was getting popular without even trying, she lost control of her ice powers again and was about to send Iruma to his maker, but she passed out due to a terrible fever from overusing her powers. Crocelle's manager, Mal, came in and started to treat her. Mal said the concert would be cancelled since only a highly skilled doctor or family member could cool down Crocelle's body. Sadly, her family lived too far away, and they wouldn't have arrived in time. Crocelle forced herself up because she couldn't give up on making her family kiss her feet. She explained her family's ability to control the temperature of water and how they all had cold expressions because they felt like they were the next best thing since sliced bread. When she was little, her grandmother showed her a Demdoll concert, which brought joy to her eyes. After her sob story, she passed out again. At the venue, the organizers were trying to control the crowd, but they couldn't stop an army of fools. Amiri also attended the event because her dad's department was providing security at the venue. She got inside and quickly blended in with the rest of the degenerates. The organizers were really worried about Kurumu not being able to perform. Crocelle woke up from a nightmare where she disappointed her family to see that it was still her reality. She saw that the time had gone by and concluded that she was also a disappointment to her fans. The sound of the crowd's cheers shook the building, and she went to figure out what was going on. She then saw that Iruma had lost all forms of self-respect by dressing up as a girl and was performing with Asmodeus and Clara, who followed him like brain-dead zombies. At that point, Crocelle thought she was probably still having a nightmare. In a quick flashback, Iruma was able to convince Asmodeus and Clara to perform an opening act with him to calm down the raging crowd. At first, Mal rejected his request, but Asmodeus and Clara used their windpipe glazing skills to convince the manager. It was Clara who ended up stealing their dignity and dressing them up as girls. They used their opening act to save the concert, and the crowd cheered for whatever made their windpipes rise at the moment. Amiri suspected that Iruma was the one on stage, but quickly told herself that the love of her life couldn't embarrass himself like that. Cressel realized that Iruma wasn't such a bad person in the end. She got on stage and kept the poor boy there to continue their performance until the end of the concert. Iruma ended up performing Kurumu's song word for word, thanks to the power of the author's plot. Afterward, Mal told Cressel that her family actually came to see her, and they treated her before leaving. She also revealed to Iruma that Cressel's family also watched her concert, but they couldn't attend in person because they also passed out when they got worked up. Cressel then gave Iruma an autograph signature. Back at school, Cressel still wanted to end Iruma because his female version still got all the attention in the newspapers. She warned him not to reveal her identity, or he would wish he was still living with his parents. Despite that, she still asked to remain friends with him. Iruma woke up the next day to a peaceful morning in the demon world, and it felt like it was going to be a great day. After a bountiful breakfast with his obsessed grandpa, he headed to school with Asmodeus and Clara. Clara convinced Asmodeus to race her to school by attacking his pride and saying that he was afraid to lose against her. Asmodeus nearly bumped into a smooching session with one of the girls, but he gracefully shifted her out of the way and continued his race. Iruma attended homeroom with Naberius and continued with his regular classes. In one of his lessons, one of the guys ended up in the arms of a girl, and Kame was ready to die while acting out the "it should have been me" meme. After classes, he continued being an unpaid translator for Amiri as he read the manga for her. Amiri recalled the line, "Everyone has secrets," from the manga, and it reminded her of the female Iruma who performed at the concert. She asked him if anything was bothering him, but Iruma just acted normally. She handed him a snack, and their hands touched in the process. Amiri's heart began pounding so fast, as if signaling that it was time for her to bear his offspring. After school, Asmodeus and Clara continued their stupid race competition. Iruma got back home and was ready to turn in for the night. That was when he realized that he was fitting in quite easily in the netherworld. The next day, he was completely down as he considered Henry's offer to erase his memories and send him home. Asmodeus and Clara noticed his mood and decided to stuff him with food to cheer him up. They snuck into the kitchen and started preparing a weird meal that Clara got from her mother's cooking. Asmodeus couldn't figure out what the crazy recipe was, but he played along to preserve pride. He decided to make the dish himself, but Clara provoked him by insulting his clothing. They got into an argument and decided to make different dishes to see which one Iruma would like more. Clara misunderstood what her mother meant by pouring love into her meal, so she ended up cooking what looked like a planetary catastrophe. She and her eccentric family started their annoying song while she cooked. On the other hand, Asmodeus prepared fine dishes, but he thought that they weren't enough. He decided to prepare a fish meal, despite his fear of fish. The next day, the two idiots presented the worst-looking dishes to Iruma. Iruma tasted both meals and said that they were more delicious when eaten together. Asmodeus and Clara called their competition a draw, while Iruma ate like he was competing to become the sin, gluttony. Their truce didn't last for long, and they started arguing again. Iruma then decided that he would continue his life in the netherworld with his two idiotic friends. If you loved this recap, don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more amazing content. See you in the next recap.